Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So this is the new format that we are trying here at Enstyle, and hopefully, it will stick. And it's good for our internal commitment, but also part of our approach is building in the open and getting feedback from our community and sharing with the community what we're building. So let me quickly introduce ourselves and give a chance to meet the team. So with us here is Eric. Eric knows the problem that we're tackling at Enstyle inside out. He has 25 years of experience in product development in fashion and worked at brands like Ralph Lauren, Ted Baker, Not Your Daughter's Jeans, Max, Aldo Shoes, and J. Crew. And Anton, he's our founder, and he knows the solution very well after having worked for big fashion and retail planning software like Oracle, TXT, and Aptos Retail, and he's leading data science and product in our team. And my name is Alina. I'm leading marketing and branding at Enstyle, and will be moderating this session. So we are planning to fit within 30 minutes as planned, but we might go a little bit over. Just in case there are some questions that you can drop in the chat, and I will we'll ask Eric and Anton them. So in terms of the agenda, we're going to start with a brief introduction to Enstyle, the problem that we're solving, then move on to some use cases, including trend insights that we've recently discovered with our platform, and then moving more to the interactive session of Q&A, having previously gathered the questions from our community, and if there are any more, we're more than happy to make it as interactive as possible. So over to Eric.
Thanks, Selena, for the great introduction. Welcome, everybody. Okay, so quickly just jumping into introducing Enstyle. Enstyle, in its simplest form, is a trend navigation platform for the fashion industry. With that, where did the idea come from? Well, let's take you on a little journey through the Atacama Desert in Chile. The reason that we mentioned this desert is, if you look at the next slide, there is a big problem in the fashion industry that we're all kind of, I'm sure, quite aware of. There is a huge amount of garments for all kinds of different reasons that ultimately do not get sold in the industry, and that's as simple as products that don't ever get sold at retail, that get taken out of the stores after they try to mark them down, product that doesn't make it to the retail floor for a reason, for multiple different reasons, that product that gets designed that doesn't get adopted. There's so many different reasons why products end up in a place like the Atacama Desert. And with our background, we really wanted to try to help solve this problem in a different way than the end industry goes about it today. Just to give you a quick understanding of how deep and how the industry kind of ends up in this scenario. A company like Shane, which everybody is very well aware of today, produces between 700 and 1,000 new items a day to test with regards to new products, putting products out there, which is a typical industry practice. The issue with that, if you think about it, 700 to 1,000 style colors that they test today. All right, how many of them actually sell and how many of them don't sell, just to give you an idea. So now this is another graph that basically shows you the extent of the amount of product that they make available today to find out what is of interest to the consumer, which leads to obviously great excess. Part of the problem, or I guess the biggest part of the problem that we see is the product life cycle, right? You see this glacier, and this represents the product life cycle, and the part that is below the water is kind of what we deal with in the product creation process of the fashion industry, right? So if you think about it, there's a lot of development work, design, creation that is kind of underwater. It's murky, it's blurry, it's dark. We don't really know what the consumer and how the consumer is thinking and how they're going to adopt the product until you get it on the floor. But that's a long process to go through, not really being sure that the that the products that you're making are going to be usable and be consumed out there in the retail marketplace. Typical product development process goes from research to design and product development to production, right? Before it gets to the floor. And this takes anywhere between 12 to 18 months or longer before you get a real understanding on how the consumer is adopting your product. And adopting, I mean buying your product. So there's a big gap in terms of understanding when the consumer is going to adopt your product, okay, and when you create the product. So, Anton had come up with this idea, and we collaborated a lot on how we could use this in the marketplace, and that is how Enstyle basically came to light. Okay, so let's give you just a quick vision on why we're doing this. One was really to bring consumer insights into the product development cycle so that it brings it much further to the beginning of the process, so that all of the kind of murky hunches that designers and creatives and merchandisers and buyers are kind of doing a lot of research and a lot of work on, we give it qualitative validation and quantitative validation. And ultimately, it's really to fix the overdevelopment issue or the misguided development issue of products that don't align with consumer interests. How do we do it? We basically look at it as three pillars to understanding consumer interest, right? There is the process, right? And the process, there's inspiration that goes along with the creative process, right? Runways, media, shopping trips, designers, understanding the market, culture. There's all kinds of things that affect and inspire product creation in the marketplace. The consumer, right? How is the consumer interacting with the marketplace, right? So there's marketplaces, social listening, crowdsourcing, their understanding of the market and how they interact with it. And then there's the market itself, meaning competitive brands, international brands, collaborations, market influencers, and how they affect consumer interest and the decision making when consumers actually finally adopt and buy a product. Let's go on to the next slide. With regards to this, how do we do it? We simplify, and actually, when I say simplify, to be able to understand and these trends, you would think you'd have to have a huge team of people, right, to do analysis and so on, and you really couldn't understand what was going on. We employ and use autonomous AI assistants, agents that commercially identify the trends while we analyze. So what would typically take teams, huge analysis and teams and numbers of people, we're actually deploying AI agents to help us in the creative process to bring consumer insights back to the design ideas that all the creatives would have in the industry. So as you can see, what we're trying to do is, as you look at the business process that we shared with you earlier, okay, we're trying to bring consumer sentiment all the way back to the research and design phase of product creation so that we can inform and make better decisions. And how we see that helping is we could potentially cut design time by 30%, increase product success by 25%, and shorten development cycles by 50%. The product life cycle and the development and sourcing product life cycle that's out there in the fashion industry has virtually been the same development sourcing life cycle that's been going on for 50 years, for decades. So we believe that this is a real improvement and a helpful addition to really get to faster fashion or better adoption of product and hopefully quicker times to market. All right, we're going to move into a few use cases just to give you ideas of how we go through this and the type of work that we're doing right now behind the scenes that we're going to produce as we go forward for our client base. So let's look at how inspiration is dealt with within the creative process today, and a couple different ways, and how we're adopting and bringing consumer insights towards that inspirational process. So in this case, we were looking at spring summer 24 runway shows, which obviously happened a year ago. And in analyzing, well over 3,000 images and media input and analyst input, we had, our agents found that embroidery was a pretty important trend going forward for spring summer 24 and future. And what we did was we put it through our trend analysis platform, and we came up with this trend curve that you can see on the bottom right on your screen. I'm sorry, the bottom left, I apologize. And that trend curve in the apricot orange line shows you over time how actually the trend is absolutely being validated, and consumers are very interested in actively pursuing and searching this trend on all different platforms. So the whole idea here is, if somebody wanted to see, and if embroidery was of interest to their consumer, right, our solution can help them understand that it is an active trend, it is being adopted by the consumer and searched by the consumer, and if appropriate for your brand, you could definitely adopt this and use it in ways to kind of interact with them at an early creative stage to potentially be right on the mark when you put the products out on the retail floor. Another example of this is coming from these past autumn winter 24 runway show for Prada, where one of the big ideas that they had and that they showed were bow dresses. And one of the key components here is, remember, this is all being done by AI agents identifying that the trend exists, and so on. So it's not just, say, a trend analyst, trend solution that's out there. This is our AI agents identifying this trend in the marketplace from the runway shows. And as you can see, that trend curve, sorry, Alina, the trend curve shows that the consumer's adoption of that and interest in that is pretty strong. by this trend curve. And what we did here on the next slide, we basically went and validated it with a brand called Heaven by Marc Jacobs, which is a youth brand that he designs, you know, kind of outside of his other collections that he designs, his own runway collection, so on and so forth. And we quickly saw that he's adopted bows in a very significant way within this collection today. This is actively on his website. You can go and validate it. But 36% of the product that is up on his website today for his brand called Heaven has adopted bows in all kinds of formats. As you can see, skirts, tops, dresses. So here's just a validation that we were able to find that, you know, also shows how it's been commercially adopted by certain designers out there. All right, the next pillar of the way our solution works is the consumer and validating consumer interests, say, against different types of trends. So in this case, one of our early adopters, one of our advisors, actually had gone through our solution with us and asked us, can you do me a favor, based on a lot of the work that I was seeing and my research and my market shopping trips that I do, and a lot of the typical type of actions that a designer does to get ready to develop product for future seasons. She had asked, can you do us, you know, look at fits in denim specifically, and because her hunch was that we're moving away from the trend that's been around for 2 or 3 years right now in the baggier fits of denim in women's wear, and we're moving more to a slimmer fit on our way potentially back to a skinny fit. So as we kind of work through, you know, asked our agents, as you can tell on the top graph, you know, here's a 10-year history of the consumer interest in skinny jeans. And if, as you can see on the left side of this graph is kind of our view, okay, our view of and our scoring of consumer interest. And that consumer interest on skinny jeans looks like it's never gone away, and it hasn't. As you all know, the industry itself had a very, very long run with skinny jeans and skinny denim, but it's never really gone away. So if we dug into it a little bit further, you can see that what we're calling an 8-year force, a mega trend, really has been that consumer interest has never really died in skinny jeans. Okay, it might just be more cyclical, but it's always being searched, it's always being looked at. But what we've seen in the, if you compress the timeline into the 2-year history, so that's the bottom graph on the left, basically the trend curve has gone down, and in the last 2 years, it's basically stopped decreasing. And as you can see, we're now on the way up in early 2024, where the curve and the interest is starting to come back. So we were able to validate the designer's thoughts through our solution. If we go to the next slide, we actually did a little bit more analysis here, and asking the agents, we basically said, okay, if we look at women's wear and we say, let's go through the progression of the way a consumer might adopt and change fits, we went and did a little bit more of analysis on baggy, wide leg, straight. So you, from the right to the left, you go from a baggier fit to a skinnier fit on your screen. And when you, what you can see is baggy fit is absolutely tailing off, and it's actually in the decline now. Okay, it doesn't mean that it isn't commercially viable. Okay, from our perspective, it's just, you know, how do we help the industry understand when it's time to start potentially buying less, developing less of their assortment in that fit, right? It's as much about understanding when a trend's going to slow down as it is about capitalizing on new trends. So in this case, if you look at it, baggy starting to really decline, okay, wide legs flattening out. Straight leg is actually starting to grow. All right. And as you move to the left, slim and skinny are both also equally starting to grow by the graph at the bottom that you can see. So our validation absolutely confirmed this designer's hunch that it's time to start moving your assortment and curating your assortment in a way and start introducing potentially some straight legs, some slim. And, you know, it's not about going all the way to the left, but it is about understanding where the consumer is and where the consumer is going to be when you drop this new product, which is probably 12 to 15 months from this design process period. All right. Lastly, going into the third pillar is the market and validating trends against the market. So another use case that we had was one of the trends that we've seen through other trend analysts, trend agencies, trend offices that, you know, you take your pick on what you know, the ones that you use and who you validate things through. Polka dots for spring summer 25 runway shows, okay, is one of the biggest trends out there, right? So we asked the agent to basically validate, you know, through the marketplace and consumer interest, polka dots. So one of the leading brands in women wear in the world market, and definitely the North American market right now, is a brand called Reformation. So we looked, and you know, we were surprised but happily you know, kind of excited when we saw that they actually are early adopters of this polka dot trend. And right now, if you go on their website, you know, you'll find from their assortment and their assortment with their wholesale partners and through their retail stores, they actually have in tops, they actually represent 12% of their tops today in spring summer 24. So here's a brand that's actually, you know, adopted early or hit a trend early that the market is saying is going to be important, you know, continuing through fall and into spring 25. What we also did was then we went and looked and we validated the trend with consumer interest. And really what we call this is more so a fad, where it's a trend that probably is going to last somewhere in a year and might be kind of industry induced, where the fashion industry and fashion designers and runways are kind of, you know, saying this is what we're feeling and what we're liking today. So they put polka dots in their line. But when we validated it against consumer interest right now, as you can tell by all these graphs, polka dots really are not high on the consumer's radar. What does that mean from a creative interpretation? From our perspective, it means you can use polka dots. There's no doubt it's going to be a trend. Just, you know, be aware. Don't go and make 80% of your tops polka dot dresses, or, you know, polka dot tops, or use polka dots in a wide array of your products, because the consumer can, you know, kind of either take it or leave it from our perspective. To kind of, you know, just review kind of how these use cases came to be and what you can do depending on your role in the industry and how we see it from a design perspective. All right, you know, this is all data-backed inspiration, right? So this, with the difference from our trend solution is we're using data from the marketplace, right? Publicly available data, all right, to validate these trends. So trend research, big ideas, hunches, concept development, theme development, you know, into merchandising, right? So line planning, right? Style, fit, you know, department kind of opportunities and vision and growth, you know, so MFP, sales planning can use our insights to help them kind of, you know, direct their budgets early on in the season before we actually produce the product and buy the product. Assortment ranking is another way we're seeing our solution being used. Sales, obviously at the, you know, at the actual retail distribution standpoint. So in other words, about putting the products in the right place, in the right stores, in the right geographic area to be able to address and understand consumer needs and wants and desires, right? Regional presence, meaning brands understanding how their product offering and their brand DNA could fit in different markets to expand. So say a North American brand that wants to expand to Europe, right? We can help validate and understand what product categories or what type of products, you know, might be relevant from your brand to that marketplace. And just the marketing strategy on top of everything. How do you message, right, the consumer in a way which we know is really, really important? There's a lot of different solutions out there that are actively trying to figure out verbiage and messaging to attract the consumer to their product and align the consumer's buying or interest with their product. If you guys want to understand more, you know, please feel free to reach out to us at the website or actually at the email address on your screen. You can go to our website, enstyle.ai, and understand more, interact with us in that way. You know, there's a lot of things that we can do, and that we're looking for early adopters. We're looking for partners and advisors to help us kind of take us on this development journey that we're on right now. So Alina, anything else to add from this perspective?
Yeah.
In terms of
Thank you, Eric, for walking us through the presentation and through what Enstyle is and our use cases. Yeah, as you said, if you know anyone is interested to find out more, reach out to our email address or on our website, freshly updated just today. You can find a form that you can fill out, and we'll get back to you. So right now, let's move on to the Q&A. We've received a few questions from some of you for this call, and we would like to address it. So the first question from our community, I guess Eric has partially answered that. Who is the Enstyle platform for? Maybe if you can just quickly summarize in a few bullet points.
Really happy to. So yes, again, I did answer it in kind of the last recap. But yeah, so anybody on the creative side, on the merchandising side, the buying and planning side, anybody that is involved in the decision-making process, okay, of adopting products prior to actually placing the buys for those products, can use this platform to identify trends, help with line planning, you know, understand geographic differences and so on. So really that's in the quickest and simplest form, I'd say anybody that uses trends to inform their decision making can absolutely use our platform.
Amazing. And the next one is also has been partially covered, but I think it would be great to hear about more specific client case studies and what clients initially came with. What are the goals that they are trying to achieve with Enstyle?
So yeah, so from my perspective, I'll really take a couple of design questions. You know, one you saw already was validating a hunch on the skinny jean for women's denim, which, you know, we are absolutely in belief that the product is now moving from baggy to a slimmer fit, a straighter fit. Another one that had come up really quickly that we're working through was the validation of stretch in denim in the better men's industry. So men wanting denim that feels like denim, but that is comfortable to stretch, and how that kind of athleisure kind of influence is affecting the men's denim industry. So you can stay tuned, and we'll have the results of that pretty soon, you know, potentially sharing them with another one of our advisors and early adopters of the platform.
Yeah, Anton, do you have any examples to add?
Yeah, I can add a couple of examples there. It's slightly different. We got also one of the early adopters. They came to us with a request to validate the existing assortment because they wanted to kind of estimate the, let's say, sell potential, buy potential of those products, which we did for them. The result was quite satisfactory for them, and then they still, kind of working with us towards other things. And the next stage might be to then start generating looks based on those items and also match it up with the aspirational brands and et cetera, et cetera. And the second case was, again, different. A retailer wanted to get our advice on the proper, or let's say more accurate assignment of the budget during the OTB planning process. And actually, they were interested not only in how they should split across categories and products, a number of options and all of that, but also they wanted to hold as much of the budget as possible during this period up until the moment then the season starts. So then that will allow them kind of more opportunity to react to any emerging trends out there.
Thank you. And just a question from our chat on the Zoom. So Maxim is asking, he's curious if our platform analyzes niche brands in specific industries like sporting wear, cycling, and so on. Anton, would you like to?
Anton, Eric, who wants to take this one?
Yeah, no, I can say that from a data perspective, absolutely, we can definitely do that, and it's actually quite interesting because we see a lot of potential for our platform to expand into not only niche or emerging brands, but also additional, let's say, industry that's kind of surrounding that. Because as Eric said, we're looking for inspirational signals. We call them trend signals, and they can come from pretty much any place in the world. And quite often we see that those niche brands, and we call them emerging brands, they're super creative and they're really, really interesting examples of analysis because they need to compete, they need to find their way to the markets, and they do amazing stuff.
Yeah. The only thing I'd add, sorry, Alina, the only thing I'd add to that is if you think about a niche brand or an emerging brand, right? You can think about any brand, they tend to have a hero product. So think about it, just let's stay in the fashion industry for a minute. They tend to focus when they launch, they have a hero product. So they become known for, say, a polo shirt, or they become known for their graphics on their t-shirt, kind of as an example, or they're known as a great hoodie manufacturer, whatever it may be, right? A great denim person. But a lot of brands that grow need to grow into other categories of product. And we can help them so it's a perfect example of how we might be able to help a niche brand grow marketplaces, grow into different geographies. We can help in so many different ways.
Yeah, I would just to add to that, I think another thing that is really exciting for us is to look at the brand collaborations between some specific niche industry brands and maybe some more mass market or ready-to-wear ones, because they're usually like this fusion that they create is really interesting to look at from the assortment, but also from their brand DNA point of view. So that's definitely something that we would love to dive deeper in.
Very good point. Yeah. Thanks for the question, Max.
Okay, moving on to the next. So what makes this different from any other prediction tool out there? Anton, would you like to speak more about the product?
Yeah, certainly. I think we all admire the work that leading, agency do, guys like WGSN, because it's basically the art that they're doing, analyzing a lot of unstructured data coming with the predictions. It's fantastic. I think where we're different is that we try to add the science component to the art to make it not just art, but art and science, and then validate everything that people are saying and everything that we see in the market through the lenses of consumer interest, right? And this is, I think, the main thing for us, because we're not only estimating sales potential, but primarily buy potential, what consumers want, how they react, how long is it going to be there, and then et cetera, et cetera. The second thing is that interpretation, because what we hear quite often is that retailers and brands, creatives, they have all the data available, but they don't have time, they don't necessarily have knowledge of working with big data and all of that, and they definitely need help to kind of something that is understandable to them that can bring value straight away. Because what we do this validation in nearly real time, and that's also the big differentiator. So interpretation is something that we do for agents, as Eric presented and talked about, and those agents can speak basically your language. They can speak any language you want, and then they can do the interpretation at the very, very personalized level. And maybe the last thing is that it's also kind of addressing the problem, but we don't see that being covered by some of the other players in the market, is the collaborative aspect, because we hear all the time that when they get together, creatives and then merchandisers and then salespeople and management, and they're like, oh, why do you think the red color or apricot color is going to be the hit, or why do you think this design feature is gonna sell? So we try to give them the platform, meaning like the insights, the consumer interest, or other things to stay in line. So it's basically just the currency they can use, and that helped them a lot in terms of just getting on the same page, validate certain hypotheses, compare them against each other as well, and then make more efficient decisions over time.
Great. Eric, anything to add?
Yeah, just kind of to echo what Anton had said, right? It's the solution's going to be very intuitive. So therefore, what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring technology from a usable standpoint to a creative process to allow the creatives to be more creative, right? So in other words, when anybody that wants to go and use our solution engages with the solution, it's going to be very intuitive, very informative, and able to understand and kind of go through and give back data in a way that in a very quick and understandable manner. And saying it a little bit differently than what Anton was explaining, he's completely right. A lot of the process that is done is very siloed in the creative world of the fashion industry. So meaning design works, then they hand over things to merchandising. Merchandising kind of collaborates and then kind of hands it over or commercializes the product. And there's a lot of back and forth and time kind of wasted in debating or discussing, right? The adoption of ideas, right? So design has an idea, they discuss their view on the idea, they create product, and this all takes time to maybe or maybe not be adopted, and is it validated by the consumer, where all of our early adopters, all of the designers that we've spoken to have had this instance where if they had this quantitative and qualitative data, right, to validate that they had something. So Anton called it currency. Validate with this information that there's consumers that are very interested in this. You actually can improve the collaboration, and actually, the adoption of it's going to come quicker because you have the data to validate that it's going to work with the consumer. So that's what I would add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things that came out of my interviews with our early adopters and advisors as well, that internal collaboration aspect. I think it's not an obvious benefit, but it definitely comes as an outcome of using our product. And speaking of data, because that seems to be coming up quite a lot during our call today, Anton, why trust the data?
It's very simple, because all our insights are traceable. You can trace them back to the source. And we can basically, you can actually use it as a navigation system as well. When you have an insight and you want to see kind of, what's behind that, why, the system or the agent says this or that, you can trace it back to the sources and you can do it, very, very quickly. So we do work and we do process, a lot of publicly available data. And we're not kind of using any proprietary data per se. So our kind of main vision is that there's a lot of or enough information out there, structured and unstructured, which makes it complicated to do the analysis with. But we kind of pack it, we process it, and then we still keep it transparent. So I think that's why you can, get the feeling they can trust, because you can explain why, and that makes it simple.
Yeah, just to add to your point, I think, the comprehensive aspect of transparent data is super important, especially on the input side of things. But from the output as well, AI is only as good, or the result of AI work is only as good as, your expertise is. And here we have Eric, who knows, as you've found out, the product development process inside out. So he's as an expert, he can tell what good looks like, and he knows this from his experience. So what is the best way to see if Enstyle can help me? Eric, would you like to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of the ideas that we had in the easiest form is, if anybody out there in the marketplace has any hunches or ideas that they're working on right now within their roles, or would want to validate a trend idea that they've seen out there, pass it along to us, email us, let us know what is what you're looking for, and we'd be happy to engage with you and go through this process, and develop out a use case to validate consumer interest in your ideas, your concepts. Another way to get involved is, as you've heard us mention a few times, an early adopter. We're always looking for people to give us insights and ideas on how the product is developing and how it's interacting with our end client base. So we'd love, that's another way that we see that we could get people to get involved with us at this present time.
Sure. And how to get started? I mean, we've already mentioned this. If you go on our website, fill out the form, or just email us directly. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn. We're trying to be more proactive there as well. And Anton, do you want to add anything here?
Maybe very quickly, I know we're running out of time. So we also, we introduced the POVs, which is a proof of value. So we have to collaborate with the early adopters and deliver POVs together. We have a capacity for 3. Currently, we're running 2 with our early adopter guys. So one kind of spot is left, and if there's any appetite out there, we're more than happy to discuss. Typically, people come and ask for, let's say, market versus competition, or I have my assortment, I have kind of my sketches or ideas, help me validate it and then fine tune it. One of the recent ones is like more related to visual merchandising. How can I make sure that my displays, my mannequins out there, they kind of in the best shape, put it this way. So there might be different forms and ways of doing that. So reach out.
Thank you. And to end on a high note, this is the last question from our community. What personally excites you about Enstyle? Eric?
Ultimately, it really is the 2 objectives, but I'm a fashion lover at heart, and to be honest, with the fact that the industry has so many constraints, so many pressures on it, right, to develop sales and profits and be profitable, a lot of those those metrics, we call them in the industry, affect the creativity that people have with products. So what excites me about this is if we can help designers really validate their hunches, but let them be more creative because they have an idea and they don't have to go back to the basic, but they can also do their fashion idea knowing that there's true consumer interest. That super excites me because it gives ability for fashion designers to really go out there and express themselves, which is what the industry is about. It's all about emotion. So that's a huge thing that excites me about this solution. And obviously, what are the ramifications of that? Hopefully, we can improve what ends up being dumped in the market and that doesn't get sold, right? So I'm always about inventory management. And so if we have consumer interest tied to product, right, and help with that, we'll eliminate some of the excess product that unfortunately ends up, as we showed at the beginning of the presentation, you know, in places like the Atacama Desert, that, you know, if we can be of any help to improve those numbers, I think it would be a big success for the industry at a whole.
Great. Anton, anything to add from your side?
Yeah, two things. Also super quick. First is the aha moment. And we always laugh internally that every time we start digging into insights and say that, okay, let's just spend the next 15, 20 minutes to verify this and that. And after, 2.5 hours, we're still doing, different things because we kind of, we were able to find something else and then something else on top of that. And it's kind of the exploration, which doesn't have any end.
Then it
so this aha moment is
6 hours.
Oh yeah, that's our definitely world record for sure. But it was interesting. It's like a blink of an eye. So the aha moment is definitely super exciting thing. The second thing is the kind of the consequence. Like another thing, we're on the call with again one of the early adopters. We keep saying that, and we heard him saying that I wish I knew that before. So that was like. Yes, that's a super testimonial for us, and that really pumps us up, I guess, to continue doing what we're doing, and then basically just hopefully grow the community, because the community factor is very important. We believe that it's something the industry should kind of work on that together, and then everything is so interconnected. So we hear from one and then others saying the same thing, and then we mix and match. So that's fantastic. I think that creates a lot of energy and synergy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So just to summarize in terms of the next steps, we're going to have this on a regular basis every 6 weeks. So thank you so much for joining us. We're just testing this format. Very much actually excited to see people joining the call. And then we also are going to roll out trend voting. So we received some trend signals from our community, and you can see them here on the list. And what we're suggesting you is follow this QR code. It will get you to a form where you can vote for top 3 signals from the list that are, in your opinion, going to make it big or add your trend hunches. And then we're going to run it through our trend scoring methodology or trend index that we're currently working on. And if your hunch is right, you'll receive a small gift from Enstyle. So we would, be very excited to see your votes, and just a fun thing to do. And thank you again for joining the call. It was a pleasure to see everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.